Hey guys, so just gonna go over this with the online students, the past winners of the Red Ants Pants Music Festival. So this is something that you're gonna want to look at before you start your thumbnail designs. If we go to this particular URL, I will include that in the Brightspace shell, but if you click on that, you can get to the same web page and actually look at the 2023 poster contest for the Red Ants Pants Music Festival. A little bit background on that. I might have already also put this on the project worksheet, but it is a festival that happens in White Sulphur Springs every year in kind of centrally located Montana. And it's basically mostly like kind of Western or bluegrass or Americana type music. So it's really more of like the authentic Montana festival. They actually only let in a certain amount of people. They don't want to become too commercialized. The town of White Sulphur Springs is quite small, but it is in a very beautiful area. It basically takes place in a cow pasture. In the distance there are mountains, and but there's also flat plains, and it does take place in kind of a flat, dusty area. Very beautiful though. So just, think about Red Ants Pants, think about the location. It's kind of in the middle of a cow pasture in central Montana. Look up White Sulphur Springs, look up the area around there so you're familiar with the area, because you don't want to be making designs with landscapes that don't reflect the local area, because that wouldn't make sense. Also, another thing to consider is there's always going to be the same header. So this is last year's winner. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. But you can see they always put the same header on. We can actually keep going. These are the other winners of the contest. It does seem to be a lot of earth tones. As you can see right off the bat, this has been happening since 2011. The area kind of looks like this. I mean, it's like wheat fields or cow pasture, and then some mountains in the distance, kind of in the farther distance, with a big sky. So, and every single one of these, if you notice, they all have quite a bit of space for the text to be added. And there needs to be a header added and a footer. So the header always contains the logo, and then this font that says Music Festival, it's always brown. So whatever color scheme you come up with too, you have to remember that it needs to look decent with this header. You can always reference the images that I include in Brightspace, but there's always going to be that header along with a footer. And it does seem like the footers that they choose, they tend to match the colors from the actual image. So they do have a bit of a formula that they follow, but this always stays the same. The brown, these colors are always the same. And then the footer seems to be colors from the actual image. And the footer always includes, the title, where it's taking place, the date, that kind of thing, some of the details of it. And then they always add in the names of the artists that are playing. So with every one of these designs, we need to take into consideration that there's plenty of room for them to add in the titles of the band. So this one's a little different because they left quite a bit of room in the sky, but they also ended up having to put some over here too. So when you design your poster, make sure that you are leaving enough room in your poster design for the text. Okay, so your main subject is going to have to take up a relatively small portion of the design, and then the background has to be relatively the same in value too, as far as your colors go. You don't want your colors to be really light and really dark, because if you want to put black text over that, you need a lighter background. Some of these have black, some of them have white. So make sure the value of the background where they're going to put the text of the band names, make sure the value of that is the same. So this one gets a little goofy because they have such a light value in the sky of this really light blue, and then the kind of darker values as they move through. So that white text, that Patty Griffin text, gets lost, and she's the headliner. So when you design, the most successful designs are going to have, let me bring this one up. This one's actually pretty good because the background on this is all the same value. So when they put this kind of light to darker, I guess it's a darker gray color over the top of that, it works on that background really well. Whereas this one, you know, they have so much value difference in that background that the color of the text is getting lost in certain areas because it's white text, and in those lighter areas, the white text gets lost on top of that lighter value. This one is working pretty good, except for when you get down here, it's getting a little hairy with this dark blue and the black. You can still read it, but it's also kind of walking a fine line. Most of them do a pretty good job. This one is a little, you know, starting to get darker, but still works. So definitely there's some things to consider, right? You have to consider the header, the footer that they're going to add in. You have to consider your subject matter being separate and taking up a relatively small portion in comparison to the background, which is typically tends to be a landscape image, because this is very much focused on the Montana experience, the outdoors, because it takes place outdoors, so it tends to have that kind of background to it. You don't have to do, obviously it's not always animals. I mean, sometimes it's, you know, something as simple as some flags and some, you know, the sky is a great thing to feature, but, you know, this one doesn't have an animal in it. It's just almost like an image from the festival itself, because they do have these poles that they string the lights and the flags up on, or that go around the festival. So just take a look and see what kind of subject matter, what kind of, you know, what kind of subjects they're putting in here, and that kind of thing. And that's about it. That's all I really wanted to kind of explain about this. Hopefully I've covered everything decently well. And yeah, hopefully you can do a good job and understand what's required of you for this poster design.